Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Tina. I am going to give everyone a chance to get logged in here. I've got my coffee. I don't know, for those of you in Southern California, I miss this place. I cannot wait for quarantine to lift so we can all get out and start living again. Um, I think all states are locked down right now. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident. Um, I got my yellow mask yesterday. I don't have a lemon one yet, but people keep sending me links to buy one, and I need to do that. I need a lemon mask. But I really haven't left my house in 3 weeks. I have an autoimmune condition, and so I'm really taking things seriously right now. But thanks for being here this morning. I had a bunch of questions come in, so I'm going to kind of go through the list. Anybody who sent in a question and I don't get to it, I'll circle it through for next Saturday. So stay tuned. Um, One of the questions that came through has to do with, I'm going to summarize her story. She lived in Texas with her husband. Their house had a major disaster, the flood. I know my brother was in Houston during the flood, or he left Houston right before the flood. So I remember very well what people went through. And she moved out of state to stay with her parents with the kids and started building a life there in the community, whatever state it was. And then her ex talked her into moving back to Texas. And when she did, he had zero contact with the family, was basically living a double life, and completely checked out. And now that she wants to move back, he is trying to force her to stay in Texas because we all know this is about power and control. Um, so she's, asking, can the state really keep me here? And somebody else had sent in a question about move away orders. So I'm kind of going to lump both of those in. Um, it's Move away orders can be really difficult to get. I in this circumstance, I don't know how long you were out of state, and I do want to issue my fine print disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not qualified to give legal advice. I can share my experiences from 10 years in the trenches of family court and also what I hear through my consulting clients on a regular basis. Good morning, Renee. Um, but ultimately, I can share my perspective, what I see when it comes to move away orders. They are really difficult to get. That's not to say you're not going to get them. It's just that the burden is on you to prove that it's a better life for your kids in the new area. Um, whether that is your job opportunities, increased income, better school districts, a better community, lower crime. And, the burden is on you to show that that new life that they're going to live is going to trump the fact that they will not have weekly access to the other parent. And we all know how much weight is given to parental rights. It's something, I'll pull this a little closer. It's something that is really frustrating for me personally. Family, there's another reason. And yeah, absolutely. Family weighs heavily into it. Some courts call it social capital. Your social capital really weighs into the equation. Your support network. If you are in Texas and you have zero support, That is a difficult, or that weight goes in your favor for sure. If you have no support in Texas and the new state, you have a whole network of people. Being free, being free, you just commented that you sent in a question. I took questions from the email, coffee date with Tina at gmail.com. Anyone feel free to submit questions for next week. I'm going to do this all through the month of April, every Saturday morning, and then I'll kind of reevaluate and see what the response has been like, and decide if we go and start doing this in May again as well. So I took questions from the emails, I took questions from online, and if I don't get to yours this week, I'll put it off towards next week. So, but back to move away orders, the burden is on you. You have to prove. And if you were in that other state for a considerable amount of time, and you can really show that it's in your child's best interest, and showing, especially in the situation that I opened with, if dad or the other parent had completely checked out and you have documented that and proved that, then personally, if I were in that situation, I would be showing the court that this is not about his love for our child. This is about power and control, and his need to control the dynamics, and that overrides his love for the child. I had touched on parental rights. We are unfortunately in a world, it's not even a country or a state, it's a world that believes in 50-50 co-parenting. And I could do a whole episode just on that. I would get a lot of hate mail, but the reality is, I am a firm believer, and I feel very comfortable saying it now, even more so, that my family court case is completely done. That I don't believe in, not only do I not believe in 50-50 parenting child's life if they are toxic. Regardless of the diagnosis or not, somebody who is abusive, whether it be mentally, psychologically, physically, emotionally, whatever it is, I am a firm believer that a child's right to live a happy, healthy, safe life trumps parental rights, or it should. Um, and I speak from my own personal experience going back to childhood. My mom was mentally unstable, had a diagnosis of bipolar, multiple suicide attempts in her life, and she ultimately took her own life when I was 26 years old. I am so incredibly thankful that my dad raised me, because I can't imagine what my life path would have taken had she had a, not even 50-50, but even 25%. um and I have so much compassion for what my mom went through in her life and the struggles that she faced. Tremendous. I think about it a lot. But as a child who didn't choose to come into that type of situation, I don't believe that she was in a healthy enough place for me to be with her. So, I'm very against 50-50 parenting and parental rights. And it's why you'll never see me joining a mom's group, or, mom's rights group, or a dad's rights group. I believe in 50 and in either gender being, whoever is a healthy parent, whoever that child is going to flourish with and be safe with. So for me, gender doesn't even weigh in. But next question. Somebody asked, what were the safest child-focused custody orders that I've seen come down from the courts through this whole COVID-19 pandemic? And also what the worst were. I don't know that I could speak to that in general in terms of a whole state issuing an order. Every single order that I've seen handed down basically says you are following the school year calendar, period. So if you normally pick up on Friday during the school year, even if you normally have a week on, week off during the summer, you follow the school year plan. I don't know that, my focus has been on individual stories. I've seen some pretty disturbing things going on because we all know this type of person, a narcissist, goes for the jugular when people are down or when there's a gray area. And right now, it's an unprecedented time. Courts are non-responsive because they're either closed or operating at limited capacity. Law enforcement officers don't want to get involved because they have to prioritize their emergencies right now. And so, these people are taking advantage of the court orders, or I've seen stories where somebody loses custody of their kids on a temporary basis because they have um, brought somebody into their house who and violated quarantine rules, things like that. It's really, you have to be really careful. Take the orders seriously that the courts are handing down, because we know that these people, their number one goal is to hurt us, and they use the kids to do that. So they weaponize the children. And so you're going to want to be really careful about making sure you yourself are keeping your side of the street sparkling clean, regardless of what they are doing. Same here in Idaho. Orders stay the same. Stick to court order. My narcissist is trying to take my baby out of daycare since he has a house. Yeah, he's home all day now. He only has supervised visits. Hopefully, your court will shut that down really quickly, Renee. Heather says, how does the healthiest parent establish they are the healthiest parent when the 14-year-old child is resisting contact and dad is controlling access? I just talked to a mom yesterday about this topic, and what I said to her, in my 8 years of doing, coaching, consulting, or just being a general support to parents, the two most painful times that I see is, the infant to toddler years are horribly painful because the kids are nonverbal. You know that there are things going on, but they can't communicate these things to you. Um, and then the second one, which can sometimes be even more painful, is the teen years. And we all know it's a really difficult time, even under the best of circumstances. Uh, a teenager, even with two healthy parents, their brains are changing, they're going through a lot, there's hormones that come into play. And so when you've got a manipulative person who plays on that and is using that situation to manipulate the child, and whether it's mom's house or dad's house is so much more fun, and they will literally go for every single crack that they can find and exploit it to make it work to their advantage when it comes to a teenager. And let's admit that, teenagers, they want the shiniest new electronics or the nicest car, out of all of their friends. And so when you've got an unhealthy, toxic parent who is, Disneyland parents who are using those, what the kids, their need to fit in, their need to be cool, all of those things, using it to hurt you and turn the child against you, it's horrible. And my heart goes out to you because you know i'm I see stories all the time where the healthy parent makes the decision, I can't do this anymore, and I'm so beat down. I'm tired of fighting the system. I'm tired of fighting him. And now I'm forced to fight my own child who tells me I am a horrible person and they want nothing to do with me. Um, I see people all the time who have to press pause and Renee says, wanted to thank you for writing the NARC decoder. I would recommend it for anyone. Thank you. It's actually was my favorite book to write because there was humor. It's finding humor in the darkness. But it's the teenage years, I there's no judgment. Ultimately you have to let your kids know, I love you unconditionally, I'm here for you. But I do understand when moms or healthy dads will just say, I need to take a break, I need to practice self-care. It's not ideal. um, but, sometimes you're in a position where you have no other choice. And especially in the States where the kid has a solid voice in the system, sometimes it is completely out of your control. And here's the thing that I see in any situation where a parent does press pause and just say, I cannot do this anymore. I'll be here when you're ready, but I have to take a step back. 9 times out of 10, the child comes back. When there is no battle between the unhealthy, toxic person and you, the fact is they don't really want to be a parent. Parenting is very selfless work. For many, it can be tedious, and so you know they're not capable of doing it for the long haul. When they're getting a feed from the battle, they're absolutely capable of keeping that mask on. But a lot of times when somebody just says, I can't do this, and I'm stepping back, then reality of parenting and the responsibilities come into play. Plus, then the child doesn't have you as a buffer anymore or a sounding board. And when they're forced to interact with this toxic person on a daily, regular basis, they see through that parent pretty quickly. And it starts off with the shiny new toys and cars and things like that, kind of take over their brain. But over time, the appeal of those things kind of get outweighed by the chaos of what they're having to deal with left to their own. And so I get emails from parents all the time who say, I haven't spoken to my child in a year, and they just came back and they, just moved back into my house 100%. Tell people don't give up. And it's a message I hear over and over again. But anyone who is co-parenting, or you know, I use that term because it's the approved term in the court system, but we all know the reality. These people counter parent. There is no such thing as co-parenting, but I use it as the proper terminology because until the court determines that the other parent is incapable of co-parenting, you're kind of stuck doing it. Okay, so the next question, exchange orders. This is a big one that keeps coming up with the current pandemic. I talk with my hands a lot. People who have custody orders that say the exchanges are done at the school, which is really common because the courts want to limit the interaction between you and the other parent. But if the school is closed, a lot of custody orders say that the exchange is to be done at one of the parents' residences. And I've got a lot of, so far it's been moms who have said, I don't feel safe with said parent at my house for the exchange. And so um, I am not comfortable, and I'm proposing neutral exchange locations. In this case, she wasn't proposing like a police station or a fire station. She was just saying, let's meet at a parking lot at a, Starbucks or something like that. And he's saying no. And he quoted the court order that says location at either parent's residence. And in a situation like that, ultimately you have to follow your court order. I know in this case, the clause was unless both parents agree to a different location. Personally, if I were facing a situation like that, I would have the exchanges, it didn't specify which residence. I would have the exchanges done at his residence. And then I would have somebody there with me to do the exchange, and obviously curbside, not going into the home or anything like that, but I would always have somebody, if that's a possibility for you. Otherwise, escalating this to the attorneys to say, I don't feel safe. I know this is what the court order says, but can you get the other party to agree? I'll even do the coffee shop right down the street from his house. I just want to do it in a public location. So that type of thing, I know how expensive attorneys are, and so part of my personal, as much as you can choose your battles wisely, but that one, when safety comes into play, I don't see any other option but to escalate this to the attorneys to deal with. That's what I would do. Um, Teenage years, yeah, it's a lot of the comments, a lot of people resonate with that, the teen years and those issues. It's incredibly painful. Um, Somebody sent in a question about, um, their court order doesn't specify for contact with the other parent. If the kids are on visitation with dad, there's nothing in the court order that says mom can contact the kids. And sometimes they're going for, a week, or I think she even mentioned a little longer on one occasion where there is no contact with her kids. Um, that's a difficult one because, ultimately, if it's not in the court order, I always, in my case, I kept my court order, and I always saw it as a work in progress. I am not of the mindset that just because this is my order, I'm stuck with it until my kids are 18. My mentality has always been, great, if this is our starting point, I'll chip away at it from there. So, with my court order, I kept a rough draft, or just a copy that was my work in progress, or I called it my wish list. And anytime I saw a flaw in the order that I needed something revised, I would just notate it, highlight it, and kind of keep that for the next time we were in court that I could address those issues. On the other hand of that question, I know a lot of parents who, or a lot of courts who will just say we're not ordering, phone contact, because that ends up being such a source of contention. And if your case is already high conflict, um, it can put, your kids in a really uncomfortable situation, especially if the other parent is monitoring the calls or making them feel guilty for saying, I love you to the healthy parent. It puts the kids in a lot of turmoil, when you've got someone, depending on, these people are all on a scale. Some of them are extreme and horrible, and more of the psychopath, sociopath, nature. And so in those situations, they're going to really cause a lot of turmoil. Then you've got the ones who are, just more playing games and things like that. Depending on where yours is on that scale, choose your battles wisely. Really think of how I know a lot of moms who just say, as much as I would love to have contact in that check-in point with my kids, it causes them so much stress and anxiety, and guilt when they, express that they miss me or they're sad. Then the other parent uses that to torture them. So you have to figure out what's best for your kids in those situations, and then, address it with the court next time that opportunity presents itself. But my heart goes out to you. I know phone calls, or an absolute nightmare. In my case, we got to the point with our court, I think it took 4 or 5 years, where the commissioner judge finally just said, Miss Swithin can record all phone calls, because what I kept reporting back to the court, was a lot of it was hearsay, a lot of it was he said, she said, but there was so much of it that it showed that there was enough of a problem through my documentation. And so I did build my case to the point where I was allowed to, because he was so bizarre and inappropriate on the phone calls that it was causing my kids a lot of stress. And then he was prohibiting my contact with the kids during his time. So the court finally, it took a long time, but they stated that the kids were to be in possession of their phones at all times, and that that he was responsible for keeping it charged, because he would say, "Oh, it ran out of battery." Well, then the court put it on him. Okay, you are responsible for keeping it charged and making sure the kids have it with them. So but that didn't come easily, again, that's the mentality of this is our starting point and now we're going to chip away at it. So I think we have about 5 minutes. No, we have less than 5 minutes. Let me see where our questions are. Okay, if your state says no travel between two residences, then you do not follow the court order and you keep the child at one home. I can't give legal advice, but what every single state or county order that I've read states that yes, we are in a shelter in place. We're in a complete lockdown in most states, but court orders give you the ability to travel from location to location. So check your state. I know on One Mom's Battle on our Facebook page, we ended up, when people would send us in the orders from their state, we had a huge thread going where, you might have to do some searching. It's been a couple of weeks since we did that, but it is there. But you could also just search for your own state. In the fine print, most of them, if not all of them, say travel between two homes for to follow court orders is accepted. Um, can I have a consultation with you? If you're interested in doing something more one-on-one, you can go to my website at onemomsbattle.com and click the consultation tab, and that will allow you to book on my calendar. Um, my attorney is letting his be the boss. He's getting away with repeatedly taking advantage with the courts on hold, but I'm warned they believe his lying text without checking facts. Or it's a marathon, being free. I hear you, and it's so painful and so frustrating. And, I don't know how long you've been in this battle. Every court has somewhat of a grace period from what I see, in that for the first couple of years, they don't know either of you and they give you both the benefit of the doubt. Um, and that's where the burden is on you to document really well. There's strategic ways to take something from a he said, she said situation or hearsay strategically to open lines of communication, and take it from that gray area and bring it into the light. But a lot of people, when they're still in this battle and they're so emotionally triggered and not able to think strategically, it becomes hard. One of the number one pieces of advice that I give to everybody: get to know your court system. Go sit in the courtroom when it opens again. Find out what is important to your judge, because what's important to my judge may not be important to your judge. And so by just sitting there and watching proceedings and familiarizing yourself with the system, you're going to learn what the court cares about. You may hear another case talk about something that really hits home for you. And then how do you weave that into your case and bring it to the light? What frustration I hear, and it's going to cut me off in 30 seconds. Frustration I hear a lot from people is, I keep showing my attorney all of this stuff and they say it's not enough. But then by the time it is enough, the attorney says, well, a lot of that stuff is in the past. And that's where I feel really thankful that I did represent myself in court because I didn't have someone shutting me down. I knew what the court would pick up on. YouTube's about to cut me off. Okay, everyone, happy Saturday. I hope to see you here next Saturday for Coffee with Tina at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you have a question, go ahead and email it to coffeedatewithtina@gmail.com. Take care.